Hungry people will make food out of whatever they have. It happens to be supper time and I haven't eaten in a very long time. So, I also have some bananas that are about to go bad, which means it's the perfect time to use them in banana bread. I needed a quick, easy banana bread recipe, and so I happened to get a recipe off of simplyrecipes.com. And this banana bread recipe calls for 3 to 4 ripe bananas smashed, a 1/3 cup of melted butter, 3/4 cup of sugar, 1 egg beaten, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, a pinch of salt, and 1½ cups of all-purpose flour. First, get mixing bowl. Secondly, you don't put mixing bowl on stove, because mixing bowl, or stove, gets preheated to 350. Don't preheat the mixing bowl to 350. The recipe calls for us to mix butter into the mashed bananas. I have 3 bananas. Bananas basically have 3 categories. If they're green, that means that they're not quite ripe yet. And I can't remember what those are good for. It was on one of those old Chiquita banana commercials. The yellow ones, the just plain yellow ones that have just gotten ripe, are really good for eating. And then the yellow ones that have brown spots on the peel are still okay for eating, but are best for baking in bread and pies and things like that. 1/3 cup of butter is about 5 1/3 tablespoons, which just happened to be what I had left after my dinner last night. Ha! Ironic! So you mix that in, get off of the pepper. This involves a great deal of smashing and mushing. The reduced sugar recipe calls for 3/4 cup. The full recipe calls for 1 cup. An egg. You know, my preference is always to mix the egg up so it's easier to mix with everything else, but this recipe, again, actually calls for it. And a teaspoon of vanilla. And as you guys also know, when it comes to little measures like that, I don't like using the actual measures. Just guess. That's a teaspoon. There we go. Okay. That's the flour, but actually the first thing that you need to do is put in a teaspoon of baking soda. Woohoo! Teaspoon. And then, since that doesn't take long to mix in at all, flour. Right, because there was egg in there. That's why it's sticking. You stay there. Carefully mix. You don't want the incident with the pudding to happen again, do we now? Dough in this recipe is meant for a 4x8 loaf pan. I'm just a poor boy. Nobody loves me. So I have my 13x9" cake pan. And we're just going to plop this right in the middle of it and see how it goes. The last step, as always, before putting it in to bake, is to grab shortening, or butter if you don't have shortening, and be sure that you get the sides and the bottom of the cake pan. I've never made this before, and this smells surprisingly bready and banana-y. I'm not even kidding. What we do now, we stick this in the oven to bake for an hour, and then we let it cool on top until it is ready to eat. Okay, less than an hour later, since I was basically making a single slice of bread, we have what is possibly the world's largest banana nut cookie. Now for the moment of truth. You need to have a piece of this. Oh, forget this! Get a potato masher. Well, that was terrific.